cameras flash, but they only capture the lie. They see Marcus Thornhill, the billionaire king of New York, standing beside his wife
To another
Victoria at
successful
the
year.
American Museum of Natural
Cheers.
History gala, the picture of American power and old
I know
money
this is
grace.
hard. It's
Tonight,
done. I'm
that
leaving.
picture burns.
Please, don't go.
While
It's
the
over.
city sleeps, Marcus will be with her, the ambitious woman waiting in a forbidden penthouse across town. He believes he is in control. He believes he has mastered the art of having two women, one for appearances, one for appetite. What he doesn't know is that by sunrise the king will be a pawn, his empire will crack open, and the only thing waiting for him at home will be the end he never saw coming. The ballroom suffocates under crystal chandeliers and the cloying perfume of inherited wealth mixed with desperate ambition. Marcus Thornhill, 52 years old, and every inch the Titan catches his reflection in 1,000 champagne flutes and feels the familiar tightness in his chest, not anxiety, boredom. The profound, crushing ennui that only a man who has conquered everything can truly understand. He built Thornhill Global Logistics from his father's modest freight company into an $8 billion empire, a name whispered on trading floors and boardrooms from Wall Street to Silicon Valley. His suit, custom-tailored by his personal tailor on Fifth Avenue, feels less like clothing and more like armor he's worn too long. A city councilman materializes at his elbow, breath reeking of aged scotch and political favors. Marcus, magnificent evening. The new museum wing stands as a testament to your generosity. Marcus nods the practiced motion of a man who perfected the art of appearing interested 2 decades ago. The new wing was a tax strategy his accountant suggested, a public relations play his team orchestrated while he slept. He hasn't seen the architectural renderings, doesn't know what art hangs inside, couldn't summon the energy to care. His gaze drifts across the crowd and snags on his wife. Victoria Thornhill stands near the silent auction tables in a column of dove-gray silk that makes her nearly invisible against the pale walls. 48 years old, platinum blonde hair swept into a chignon that must have required an hour of someone else's labor, she embodies the role of society wife with such perfection it borders on performance art. She's discussing something with the wife of a Connecticut senator, her expression one of polite, engaged interest that Marcus knows is as authentic as the smile he's wearing. Victoria is beautiful, the way a marble statue is beautiful, cold, flawless, and utterly untouchable. They haven't truly touched skin-to-skin souls meeting even for a moment in years, longer than he can remember. Their marriage is another one of his holdings, a legacy asset acquired 25 years ago when she was Victoria Ashford, daughter of old Westport money and impeccable breeding. The marriage is stable, predictable, profitable in the ways that matter to people who attend events like this. It is also completely devoid of anything resembling passion or genuine human connection. The boredom spreads through him like poison, and then he sees the antidote. Natalie Pierce stands near a sculpture of twisted bronze utterly out of place among the silver-haired donors and their carefully preserved spouses. 28 years old, she blazes in a dress the color of fresh blood, crimson silk clinging to curves that the society matrons would whisper about in powder rooms. Her dark hair cascades over one bare shoulder in waves that look artfully careless, but probably cost a fortune to achieve. She shouldn't be here. This gala is strictly for senior board members and their families, the inner circle of Thornhill Global's power structure. But Natalie has a talent for appearing in rooms she wasn't invited to, for slipping past barriers that stop lesser people. Their eyes meet across 50 feet of imported marble and carefully cultivated social distance. The jolt that runs through him is physical, electric, the first real sensation he's felt in months. Natalie's dark eyes hold his with a challenge, a silent dare that bypasses every careful word being spoken around them. She doesn't smile. She simply looks, her gaze traveling down the length of his body with slow, deliberate appraisal before returning to his face. A tiny curve touches her full red lips, barely there, impossible to miss. She knows. He knows. The itch becomes a roar. His phone vibrates against his chest, the buzz a heartbeat out of sync with his own. He doesn't need to look. The message will be from her, something brief and loaded with promise. He excuses himself from the councilman mid-sentence, the man's voice fading into the background noise of string quartets and polite laughter. Marcus navigates the crowd like a shark, cutting through lukewarm water instinct, guiding him to his wife. Victoria's conversation with the senator's wife pauses as he approaches. He leans in, pressing his lips to her cheek. The skin is cool like touching fine parchment, bloodless and preserved. "Patricia, darling." His voice carries just the right note of regret mixed with importance. "I'm afraid something urgent has come up. The Hong Kong deal. Seoul is panicking about the regulatory filings. I need to get on a conference call immediately, and it's going to run all night." Victoria's blue eyes meet his, clear as winter ice, and just as cold. There isn't a flicker of suspicion visible on her face, or perhaps he thinks with sudden uncomfortable clarity, there is nothing but suspicion worn so long and so thoroughly it has become part of her bone structure, invisible and permanent. "Of course, Marcus." Her voice is modulated, perfect, empty. "You work so hard. Shall I have Raymond wait up for you?" Raymond is their driver, a man. Marcus pays handsomely to be invisible and discreet. "No, don't be ridiculous. I'll arrange my own car. You stay enjoy the auction. Buy that sculpture you were admiring earlier." He pats her arm, a gesture of ownership disguised as affection of dismissal wrapped in concern. It's a Calder Marcus, an original mobile. The correction is gentle, but he's already turning away, already forgetting she spoke. "Whatever it is, charge it to the foundation account. Consider it an early anniversary gift." He doesn't wait for her reply, doesn't see the way her fingers tighten fractionally around her champagne flute. He feels her eyes on his back as he pushes through the crowd toward the museum's bronze entrance doors, the weight of her gaze like cold water trickling down his spine. He shrugs off the sensation. He is Marcus Thornhill. He has earned this. He has built an empire, created thousands of jobs, moved the markets with his decisions. If he wants a few hours of heat to balance the ice of his marriage, who has the right to judge him? The night air of Manhattan hits him as he exits onto Park Avenue, crisp and sharp after the recycled warmth inside. He pulls out his phone, fingers already typing before his mind consciously decides to send the message. "My car. 10 minutes. Meet me at the Tribeca address." He doesn't see Natalie slip out through a side entrance 3 minutes later, her crimson dress a slash of color against the gray stone. He doesn't see his wife Victoria standing perfectly still by a window overlooking the avenue, watching his town car pull away into traffic. She doesn't look sad, she doesn't look angry. Her face holds no expression at all as she watches the taillights disappear, calm and still as a frozen lake in January. Then slowly she lifts her phone to her ear. The call connects on the first ring. Harrison. Her voice is quiet but carries the weight of absolute certainty, the tone of someone giving an order they know will be executed without question. He's on his way to her now. It's time. Execute the plan. The Tribeca penthouse exists in the gray area between Marcus's public empire and his private appetites, a monument to compartmentalization and corporate shell games. The address doesn't appear on any of his official asset disclosures. The lease is held by a Delaware corporation, which is in turn owned by another entity registered in Nevada, a maze of legal structures designed by his attorneys to be impenetrable to casual scrutiny. The space itself is aggressively modern, all floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the Hudson chrome fixtures, black leather furniture, the complete antithesis of the antique-filled Westport estate he shares with Victoria. This is a place for transactions, not for living. A stage set for a very specific kind of performance. When the private elevator opens directly into the living room, Natalie is already there. The crimson dress lies pooled on the white marble floor like a single drop of blood on snow. She's wearing one of his shirts, white silk with French cuffs unbuttoned just enough to suggest rather than reveal. Her feet are bare toenails painted the same arterial red as the discarded dress. "You took your time." Her voice is low, textured with amusement and something sharper. The old guard must have been feeling chatty tonight. Marcus shrugs off his jacket, drapes it over a chair, already shedding the persona he wore to the gala. Traffic was hell. And Harrison cornered me about the quarterly projections. Let them talk. Natalie moves toward him with the fluid grace of someone who knows exactly what effect she creates, who has studied the art of attraction and weaponized it. They're dinosaurs, Marcus. Fossils sitting on their piles of outdated strategy, terrified of everything that's coming. You're a lion among sheep. You should be with someone who understands that. Someone who thinks like you do. He catches her wrist, pulls her close enough to smell the expensive perfume she wears, something dark and spiced that makes his pulse hammer in his throat. And what am I? A lion. She rises on her toes, lips brushing the edge of his ear, breath hot against his skin. You're Marcus Thornhill. You built an empire from nothing. You can have whatever you want, take whatever you need. And right now, you want me. He does. God help him, he does. He wants her ambition, which feels cleaner and more honest than Victoria's placid acceptance of his absences and infidelities. He wants her hunger, which mirrors his own and makes him feel powerful in a way that moving markets and closing deals stopped doing years ago. He wants her fire, which makes him feel young again, vital, alive, instead of slowly calcifying into another old man, counting his money and waiting to die. The night unfolds in its predictable, intoxicating patterns. They drink vintage scotch from Waterford Crystal, the kind he keeps stocked in the penthouse bar for exactly this purpose. They talk about her career, her vision for Thornhill Global's marketing strategy, ideas that are really just his own concepts from 5 years ago, repackaged with fresh language and presented with her dazzling smile. He knows this. He doesn't care. The flattery is part of the transaction, and he's willing to pay for it. The board is stale, Marcus. Natalie curls on the black leather sofa legs tucked beneath her, the shirt riding up her thighs. Harrison Mitchell Reynolds. They're relics from another era. They don't understand the new market dynamics, the shift toward integrated logistics platforms and real-time supply chain optimization. I understand it. We understand it together. This is their game, the dance they perform. She isn't just a mistress warming his bed. She's a corporate raider in training a woman who wants the keys to the kingdom, not just access to the king. She doesn't only want his body, she wants his passwords, his board seat, his power. Patience, Bella. He uses the nickname deliberately, a small intimacy that costs him nothing and makes her eyes flash with pleasure. These things take time. You can't force a board transition without cause. Time is for people who are afraid. Her voice sharpens the ambition showing through the seduction like bone through skin. Victoria has had 25 years, Marcus. 25 years. What has she built with all that time? A reputation for arranging roses at charity luncheons, a seat on the opera board. It's pathetic. I could be your real partner. Side by side equals building something that matters. Imagine what we could accomplish together. He smiles, enjoys the naked hunger in her voice, the way she makes no effort to hide what she wants from him. It's refreshing after Victoria's careful neutrality, her polite distance. And what about Victoria? He's playing his part in their script, asking the question she's waiting for. Natalie scoffs, dismissive. It's only complicated because you let it be complicated. You're a billionaire, Marcus. Write her a check. Give her the Westport house and the foundation set her up with enough money to live out her days arranging flowers and attending gallery openings. She'd probably be relieved. She's been playing a role for so long she's forgotten how to be anything else. The thought has appeal, he has to admit. A clean break, a fresh start, him and Natalie as the new power couple, young enough to matter, hungry enough to keep winning. Victoria could fade into comfortable obscurity, another divorcee with too much money and too much time, invisible in the way women her age become invisible to men like him. Maybe. One day. The words slip out before he fully considers them, a promise he doesn't mean, but enjoys making. You're moving too fast. He sets down his glass, reaches for her. You'll spook the board and then we'll both lose. Am I? She uncoils from the sofa, slides onto his lap in a movement so practiced it's almost mechanical. Or am I the only person in your life willing to tell you the truth? You're trapped, Marcus. Trapped in a marriage that died years ago, trapped by people who want to keep you safe and small and manageable. I'm the only one offering you the key to get out. He kisses her. Then a kiss meant to silence and claim to reassert the power dynamic he needs to maintain. He is in control here. He is the one paying for this penthouse, this scotch, this woman's time and attention and carefully performed desire. He is buying her ambition, renting her fire, leasing her youth. It's a transaction he understands, simple and clear. He is a fool. He doesn't notice the way her eyes stay sharp and calculating even as she kisses him back, professional and perfect. He doesn't know that her brilliant marketing proposals are just bait carefully designed to make him feel valued while she pursues her real agenda. For the past 4 months, Natalie has been methodically copying files from Thornhill Global's private server, the one that holds contracts, client lists, proprietary logistics, algorithms, everything that makes the company valuable. She isn't trying to climb the ladder at his company. She's building her own empire using his resources as the foundation, his trust as the key to the vault. And he has no idea that her greatest ally, the person who first quietly directed her toward Marcus's vulnerabilities and showed her exactly which server access codes to exploit, is the same man his wife just called from the museum. Harrison Blake, Victoria's attorney, has a very expansive definition of discovery and leverage. Natalie Pierce, hungry for her own piece of the American dream, is his most valuable and most unwitting asset in a much larger game. She thinks she's seducing a king to become a queen. In reality, she's the jester hired by the old queen to distract the court while the real players move the pieces that matter. As dawn begins to lighten the sky over Manhattan, painting the buildings in shades of bruised purple and gray, Marcus Thornhill sleeps the deep, dreamless sleep of a man who believes utterly in his own invincibility, who has never once considered that he might not be the smartest person in any room he enters. 500 miles north, in a glass-walled office overlooking the Philadelphia harbor, Victoria Thornhill sits at a desk surrounded by whiteboards covered in complex algorithms and market projections. The office is functional, not opulent, filled with the quiet hum of servers and the blue glow of multiple monitors. The company name etched in frosted glass on the door reads Apex Systems, one of dozens of ambitious startups competing in Philadelphia's tech corridor, invisible to everyone who doesn't know where to look. Victoria, dressed in a charcoal cashmere sweater and tailored slacks, her platinum hair in a practical bob instead of the elaborate style she wore at the gala, looks nothing like the museum piece who stood beside Marcus just hours ago. She looks 10 years younger, alert, and focused, every ounce of her considerable intelligence directed at the screens in front of her. Her attorney, Harrison Blake, sits across from her, tablet in hand. Harrison looks more like a rumpled literature professor than a legal assassin, gray hair, perpetually disheveled, wire-rimmed glasses sliding down his nose. But his mind is a precision instrument capable of finding and exploiting weaknesses in legal structures that other lawyers don't even know exist. He's the only man Marcus Thornhill ever truly feared in a negotiation, which is exactly why Marcus had him blacklisted from every major firm in New York a decade ago. Victoria found him teaching a quiet seminar on contract law at M1T, recognized his value, and recruited him to her side. Service was confirmed at 7:02 this morning, right on the front steps. Harrison's voice is dry, precise. Raymond had visual confirmation. Marcus is home now. Victoria takes a slow sip of her tea. English breakfast, no sugar. Good. Harrison scrolls through his tablet, checking off items with methodical satisfaction. The injunction was filed at 8:01. The temporary restraining order was served to his office at 8:05. The board was notified at 8:10. The Hong Kong partners received notice of the asset freeze at 8:11. He glances up, allows himself a small smile. As of this moment, 8:15 Eastern Time, Marcus Thornhill is financially paralyzed. He cannot access the joint accounts. He cannot move his shares. His high-limit cards have been flagged and reduced to standard limits as the joint account holder's prerogative. He cannot complete the Hong Kong transaction. Victoria sets down her teacup with precise care, and Ms. Pierce Harrison's smile widens fractionally. Her company-issued credit cards were deactivated at 800 hours. The lease on the Tribeca penthouse held by that absurd shell corporation was terminated by the landlord this morning for breach of the morals clause embedded in the commercial lease. I recently began representing the property owner, purely coincidentally, of course. Building security is escorting Ms. Pierce from the premises as we speak. Victoria's expression remains neutral, controlled. She feels no pity for Natalie Pierce, no sisterhood or sympathy. The younger woman made her choices, pursued her ambitions, played the game, and lost. She served her purpose. Nothing more needs to be said about her. Harrison leans back regarding Victoria with something approaching admiration. I have to admit this is the most surgical corporate exfiltration I've ever witnessed. 9 months of planning. When did you know? When did it shift from enduring a bad marriage to planning his complete destruction? Victoria looks out the window at the gray Philadelphia morning, the harbor stretching cold and vast toward the horizon. It wasn't a plan at first. It was a realization, a moment of clarity. She tells him about Christmas dinner 9 months ago, the night that changed everything. Not another affair. Marcus had always had affairs, an endless parade of younger women, flight attendants and associates and whoever else caught his attention that week. She had made her peace with that reality years ago, understood it as the price of the stability and resources her marriage provided. The affairs were just another line item in the cost-benefit analysis of being Mrs. Marcus Thornhill. But 9 months ago their son Ethan came home for Christmas. 26 years old, trying to build something meaningful with his life instead of just managing wealth he didn't earn. Ethan had started a small nonprofit in Philadelphia using his MIT computer science degree to build logistics platforms for food banks and disaster relief organizations. Real work that helped real people. He came to his father during Christmas dinner in front of Victoria and her sister and Ethan's girlfriend and asked for a bridge loan. $50,000. Not to buy a sports car or fund a vacation. To make payroll for the 5 people working with him to keep the lights on for another quarter while they pursued grant funding. Marcus laughed. Not a chuckle, not a dismissive brush-off, but actual laughter, loud and cruel, and designed to humiliate. He called Ethan a sentimental fool, said he was wasting his trust fund and his education on poverty tourism, playing at charity, while real men built real businesses. The words flayed Ethan in front of everyone, stripped away his dignity and his hope with surgical precision. Victoria watched her son's face crumble, saw the light go out of his eyes, and in that moment she saw Marcus clearly for the first time in 25 years. Not as her husband, not as a titan of industry, but as a blight, a destructive force that didn't build anything except his own ego. A man who consumed everything around him and gave nothing back, who measured his worth in dollars and power, and never once considered that he might be destroying the people who loved him. That night, after everyone had gone to bed and the house was silent, Victoria opened a new laptop purchased with cash. She created a new bank account using the inheritance her grandmother had left her years ago. Money Marcus had always dismissed as pocket change barely worth acknowledging. She quietly re-enrolled in the computer science master's program she had abandoned 25 years earlier when she married him, finishing the degree online over the next 7 months. She hadn't just been planning garden parties and attending charity galas for the past 2 decades. She had been learning, observing, understanding the logistics industry from the inside while everyone assumed she was just decorative. And she had been remembering the algorithm she wrote 20 years ago, fresh out of her undergraduate engineering program, the predictive routing system that became the foundation of Thornhill Global's competitive advantage. Marcus had taken her work, filed the patent under his name alone, built his empire on her intellectual property while she smiled at dinner parties and pretended not to notice. She had been young then, in love, stupid enough to believe that marriage meant partnership, that his success would somehow be shared success. She knows better now. Apex Systems Incorporated 6 months ago, funded by her grandmother's inheritance and strategic investments from venture capitalists, Harrison introduced her to people who saw the potential in her revolutionary logistics AI. The patent was secured 5 months ago, a system that doesn't just optimize routes but predicts bottlenecks and adjusts in real time, making Thornhill Global's infrastructure look like a horse and buggy operation trying to compete with Tesla. Beta testing with 2 major clients ran for 8 weeks, proving the system worked better than anything else on the market. Official contracts were signed 2 weeks ago. Major corporations ready to abandon Thornhill Global the moment they had legal justification to switch. Victoria didn't just want to leave Marcus. She wanted to make him irrelevant. She wanted to prove that everything he built was built on foundations she created, and without her, he was nothing but ego and expensive suits. He didn't just cheat on me, Harrison. Victoria's voice is quiet but carries an edge sharp enough to cut. He bored me. He disappointed me. He looked at our brilliant son and saw failure because Ethan wanted to help people instead of exploit them. Marcus thought I was an ornament, a trophy he could polish and display and ignore. He forgot that ornaments are just objects waiting for the right moment to be taken out of the box and put to better use. She had known about Natalie from the beginning, had in fact subtly encouraged the relationship. She made sure Natalie's marketing proposals reached Marcus's desk, made sure the young woman received an invitation to the gala, despite not being senior enough to warrant one. Victoria needed a final, undeniable public justification for divorce, needed the morals clause in Marcus's CEO contract to be triggered, needed photographic evidence of adultery to make everything else fall into place. Natalie thought she was playing Marcus. She had no idea Victoria was playing them both. Harrison pulls up a new document on his tablet, all business again. Phase 2. The board. They're already panicking. The stock opened down 8% on news of the divorce and asset freeze. When the market realizes the Hong Kong deal can't close, we're looking at another 15 to 20% drop before lunch. Victoria nods. And the article's scheduled to drop at 10:15, right as the panic peaks. The Wall Street Journal piece details Apex's technology, includes quotes from the two major clients announcing they're terminating their Thornhill Global contracts and signing with us instead. It's going to be a bloodbath. Good. Victoria stands, walks to the whiteboard, picks up a marker. They'll want to negotiate. Offer me a settlement to go away quietly. Let Marcus save face and maintain control. Harrison raises an eyebrow. And you'll say, Victoria smiles, small and cold and absolutely certain. I'm going to tell them I don't want a settlement. I want the company, all of it. The sun rises watery and indifferent over Connecticut as Marcus Thornhill wakes in the unfamiliar bed, head pounding from too much scotch and too little sleep. The light slanting through the floor-to-ceiling windows is harsh, unforgiving, showing every speck of dust floating in the air of the penthouse. He feels the familiar aches, the dull throb behind his eyes, the stiffness in his neck from pillows designed for aesthetics rather than comfort, and the sour taste of regret's cousin, inconvenience. He hates mornings after. They're messy, and Marcus Thornhill has spent his entire adult life eliminating mess from his existence, compartmentalizing, controlling, managing every variable to maintain the pristine surface of his perfect life. Natalie sleeps beside him, dark hair spilled across white sheets like an oil-slick face, relaxed and young in the morning light. She looks vulnerable, almost innocent, but Marcus knows better. Vulnerability is a weapon in her arsenal, not a genuine state. In his world, among his people, weakness is something you display strategically or exploit ruthlessly. There is no in-between. He extracts himself from the bed with practiced silence, retrieves his clothes from where they were discarded across the floor. The man who stares back from the bathroom mirror is a stranger for a moment, disheveled and creased, his $5,000 shirt wrinkled beyond repair, his carefully maintained facade cracking around the edges. He looks like what he is, a man who has been used, who traded money and power for a few hours of feeling wanted. Marcus smooths his hair with hands that shake slightly. Buttons his cuffs, reconstructs the armor of Marcus Thornhill, titan of industry, over the weakness of Marcus Thornhill. Aging man, desperate to feel young again. He doesn't leave a note for Natalie. He doesn't kiss her goodbye. The transaction is complete. The account is settled. Time to return to the other life, the other performance. The ride back to Westport is one he has made 100 times or more, a grim pilgrimage from sin to sanctuary, from the chaos of Manhattan to the manicured perfection of Connecticut's Gold Coast. His driver Raymond, a silent man who has worked for the Thornhill family for 15 years, keeps his eyes locked on the road ahead. Usually Raymond offers a quiet greeting, a professional acknowledgement of Marcus's presence. Today, there is only silence. The Bentley purrs through awakening streets, crossing from the grit and energy of the city into the carefully preserved beauty of the suburbs, where every lawn is perfect and every hedge is trimmed to identical heights. Usually during these drives, Marcus feels a sense of satisfaction, of having successfully juggled his two lives without consequence, the master of his universe, bending reality to his will. Today, something feels wrong. The air in the car carries a strange weight, thick and oppressive. Raymond's silence isn't the comfortable quiet of professional discretion. It's something else, something deliberate. As they turn onto the long, tree-lined drive leading to his estate, Marcus feels unease coiling in his gut. Too quiet. By 7 in the morning, the grounds should be active with staff. Gardeners tending the heritage roses Victoria cultivated with obsessive care. Housekeepers preparing breakfast. Security making their rounds. Today there is nothing but silence and stillness, the grounds abandoned. The gravel crunches under the tires, the sound unnaturally loud in the dead air. The house itself, a formidable Georgian mansion that has stood on Victoria's family land for over a century, looks asleep, or abandoned. No lights in the windows, no movement, no signs of life. Raymond, what the hell is going on? Marcus hears the edge in his own voice, sharp and defensive. Raymond brings the car to a stop at the grand portico, turns to meet Marcus's eyes in the rearview mirror for the first time all morning. His expression is professionally blank, giving nothing away. Mrs. Thornhill gave the entire household staff the week off, sir. Effective yesterday evening. What? Why wasn't I informed? She indicated you were aware of the decision, sir, for the spring cleaning. Raymond says the words spring cleaning the way someone else might say funeral arrangements, flat and final. Marcus feels his chest tighten, confusion mixing with the first threads of real alarm. Spring cleaning. We've never dismissed the entire staff. Ever. What the hell is she thinking? Raymond exits the vehicle, walks around to open Marcus's door with his usual efficiency. He stands there in his perfect driver's uniform waiting. Mrs. Thornhill arranged for my final payment personally, sir, along with a very generous severance package. Retirement bonus, health insurance continuation, the works. She was quite thoughtful about it. Severance. Marcus's voice rises despite his effort to maintain control. Retirement. You're not retiring, Raymond. I didn't authorize any of this. Raymond meets his gaze directly, no longer employee to employer, but man to man. Nevertheless, sir, it's done. I wanted to thank you for 15 years of employment. It's been a privilege. He doesn't wait for a response. Doesn't linger for the tip Marcus would normally provide. Raymond simply walks to a modest sedan parked near the service entrance, gets in and drives away down the long driveway without looking back once. Marcus stands alone on the portico, still wearing yesterday's ruined suit, feeling the morning cold seep through the fabric. He realizes with a shock that startles him that he doesn't have his overcoat. He left it at the penthouse draped over Natalie's sofa, another small piece of his carefully constructed life left behind in the wrong place. Cursing under his breath, Marcus fumbles for his keys, finds them buried in his pocket beneath his phone and wallet. He never uses his keys. The door is always opened for him by Raymond or the household staff. One of 1,000 small services he has taken for granted for so long he forgot they were services at all. The lock turns with a mechanical click that sounds too loud. Marcus lets himself into the grand foyer, and the silence that greets him is absolute. The air is cold, the heating system is off. The house feels hollow, emptied of everything that made it a home rather than just an expensive collection of rooms. Victoria. His voice echoes off marble floors and soaring ceilings swallowed by the vast emptiness. Nothing. No response, no footsteps, no sign that anyone has been here for hours. Marcus moves through the ground floor, each step increasing his sense of wrongness, of fundamental displacement. The grand drawing room stops him cold. The walls are bare. The Monet that Victoria spent months tracking down through auction houses and private sales, the 2 Rothko canvases she called her quiet rebellion, the valuable Alexander Calder mobile that hung in the center of the room. All of it is gone. Empty spaces and hanging wires mark where art once lived, scars on the perfect walls. Victoria. He's shouting now, real panic threading through his voice, turning it harsh and desperate. He storms through the rest of the ground floor. The kitchen is empty, cabinets bare, the commercial-grade appliances gleaming and unused. The pantry that normally holds enough food to feed an army has been cleared out completely. He takes the grand sweeping staircase 2 steps at a time, his heart hammering against his ribs, adrenaline flooding his system. The master's suite. He bursts through the double doors and stops dead. Empty. The 4-poster bed that has sat in this room for 3 generations is still here, but stripped bare, the linens removed. He crosses to Victoria's walk-in closet, throws open the doors and finds a cavern. Racks upon racks of empty hangers, hundreds of them, where her extensive wardrobe once hung. Every dress, every shoe, every one of the designer handbags she collected with quiet dedication, all of it gone. Marcus spins, checks his own closet. Untouched. Every suit perfectly aligned, every shirt pressed and ready, every pair of shoes polished and placed. She took nothing of his. She evacuated only herself, erased her presence from the house with surgical precision, left him surrounded by his own things, in rooms that suddenly feel like a museum to his isolation. He backs out of the master suite, his mind racing, trying to understand. This isn't anger. This isn't a fight that will blow over after a few days of cold silence and eventual reconciliation. This is systematic, planned, thorough. This is an evacuation executed with military precision. Where did she go? Her sister in Philadelphia, her mother's place in Charleston. How did she move all of this? The logistics alone would have required weeks of planning coordination, a level of organization that defies everything he thought he knew about his wife. He walks slowly back down the stairs, one hand on the banister to steady himself, and moves toward his study. This room at least should be untouched. His sanctuary, the one space in the house that belongs entirely to him, filled with dark mahogany and green leather, the smell of old books and aged scotch and success. He pushes open the door and everything is exactly as it should be. His awards and citations cover the walls, proof of his achievements and status. The crystal decanters on the sidebar are full. His massive desk sits in the center of the room, commanding and imposing the throne from which he has ruled his empire for 2 decades. On the perfect, polished mahogany surface, placed in the exact center with deliberate care, sits a single, thick, cream-colored envelope. Marcus recognizes the stationery immediately. It's the same expensive cardstock Victoria uses for her charity correspondence, heavy and textured, embossed with her family crest. But this envelope isn't addressed to a donor or a duchess or any of the carefully cultivated connections in her social network. It has only his name written in her perfect, elegant script. Marcus. He stares at the envelope for a long moment, circling the desk like a predator, suddenly uncertain whether he's walking into a trap. His hands are shaking again. He pours himself scotch from the nearest decanter, downs it in one burning gulp that grounds him in physical sensation, gives him something concrete to focus on besides the growing dread in his chest. Finally, he snatches the envelope, tearing it open with a violence that surprises him. No wax seal, no dramatic flourishes. Victoria has never been dramatic. She is precise, methodical, thorough. Inside there is no letter, no tear-stained confession, no angry handwritten accusations. There is only a thick legal document, pages bound with a metal clasp, professional and impersonal. The cover sheet reads, Superior Court of the State of Connecticut, Fairfield County. Case number FSTCV-25608. Thornhill, Victoria A. Plaintiff versus Thornhill, Marcus P. Defendant. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Marcus reads the words 3 times, but his brain refuses to process their meaning. Dissolution of marriage. Not divorce, not separation, but dissolution. Erasure. The complete legal termination of their union, clinical and sterile and absolutely final. The rage that has been simmering in his chest since he found the empty house explodes into white-hot fury. Divorce. She's divorcing me. She's leaving me. He rips through the pages, scanning for words he recognizes, for explanations that make sense. Irreconcilable differences. Dissipation of marital assets. and then there in black and white formal legal language, adultery. Attached to the back of the petition is a separate motion, and behind that marked Exhibit A Evidence. Marcus flips to it, and his blood turns to ice in his veins. A photograph. Not a grainy, long-lens shot from some private investigator lurking in shadows. This is crystal-clear, high-resolution, professionally composed. It shows him unmistakably standing in the lobby of the Tribeca building last night. His arm is around Natalie's waist. He is kissing her neck. Her crimson dress is a splash of damning color against his dark suit. The timestamp printed in the bottom corner reads 11:52 p.m., exactly 1 hour after he left the museum gala. He turns the page with numb fingers. Exhibit B. Another photo, same location, same clarity. Him leaving the building this morning exhausted and disheveled. The timestamp 6:48 a.m. There are more. Dozens more. Not just Natalie. Ashley, the flight attendant he spent a weekend with in San Diego last year, caught on camera on the hotel balcony at the Del Mar Resort. Jessica, the wife of his Dallas banker, getting into a cab with him in the Highland Park neighborhood. Every affair, every indiscretion, every moment he thought was private and secret, documented with dates and times and locations, a comprehensive portfolio of his sins laid out like evidence at a trial. How? The word comes out as a whisper, inadequate and broken. How could she have known? How could she have proven any of this? Victoria doesn't hire private investigators. She doesn't plot revenge. She is the gentle, naive wife who plans garden parties and attends opera board meetings. She doesn't understand this world of surveillance and evidence gathering. She doesn't know how to fight this way, except she clearly does, and she clearly has. Marcus scrambles for his phone, punches in the number for Douglas Kent, his personal attorney, the most ruthless and expensive legal mind in New York. Douglas will handle this. Douglas will crush her turn, this around make it go away. The call goes straight to voicemail. The message that plays is Douglas's voice, but the words are wrong, all wrong. This is Douglas Kent. I am currently unavailable. If this is a personal matter, please hang up and do not leave a message. If this is a professional matter regarding the Thornhill Global Board transition, all inquiries are now being directed to the office of Harrison Blake. Thank you. Marcus drops the phone, hears it clatter on the mahogany desk. Board transition. Harrison Blake. What the hell is happening? He tries his office next. His assistant Lauren picks up on the second ring, but her voice is high and strained, trembling with barely suppressed panic. Mr. Thornhill, sir, I don't know what to tell you. The board called an emergency meeting an hour ago. They're in session now. It's about the morals clause in your employment contract. And the injunction. Sir, they received copies of everything. The photos, the divorce filing, all of it. Marcus's world tilts on its axis. The morals clause. That standard boilerplate language in executive contracts, meaningless legal theater designed to make shareholders feel protected. It's never actually enforced. It can't be enforced just for having affairs. Half the CEOs in America would be fired tomorrow if adultery alone violated their contracts. The morals clause is nothing. It doesn't matter. Lauren's voice cracks slightly. It matters when it's paired with the asset freeze, sir, and the misappropriation allegations. They're saying you used company resources for personal matters. The Tribeca penthouse lease, it went through a Thornhill Global subsidiary. They're here now, sir. Security is boxing up your office. I have to go. The line goes dead. Marcus stares at the phone in his hand, then back at the stack of legal documents on his desk. He missed something. He was so focused on the divorce petition and the photographs that he didn't read carefully. He flips back through the pages with frantic urgency. There. Not just a petition for dissolution of marriage, a temporary restraining order and emergency motion to freeze assets pending full forensic audit. The language is dense and technical, but the meaning is clear enough. Prevent the defendant Marcus P. Thornhill from hiding, transferring, or leveraging community property pending equitable distribution. Hiding, transferring, or leveraging. The words repeat in his mind like a death knell. The Hong Kong deal. The $2 billion acquisition he used as his excuse last night to abandon the gala, the transaction he has spent 6 months structuring and negotiating. The deal requires him to pledge his personal shares in Thornhill Global as collateral using marital property to guarantee the financing. The deal is set for final approval today, this morning, in approximately 2 hours. If his assets are frozen, if he cannot pledge those shares, the deal collapses. The Hong Kong partners will walk away. The stock will plummet on news of the failed transaction. His reputation will be shredded. The board will panic. This isn't a divorce. This is a corporate assassination executed with precision timing and perfect knowledge of his vulnerabilities, every piece moving into place at exactly the right moment to cause maximum destruction. He looks at the divorce petition again, at the photographs of him with Natalie, the careless, smug expression on his own face as he kissed her neck, believing he was untouchable, believing he had earned the right to take whatever he wanted without consequence. Victoria Ashford Thornhill. The woman who arranged flowers and sat silently at dinner parties, the woman he dismissed as a museum piece, decorative and harmless, and utterly without power. She didn't just leave him. She didn't just file for divorce. She set a bomb under his entire existence, placed every charge with perfect precision, and waited until he was in exactly the right position before detonating everything at once. The silence of the house is no longer just absence. It is the vacuum left by an explosion, the hollow space where his life used to be. Marcus Thornhill, master of the universe, king of his domain, stands alone in his study, surrounded by his awards and his accomplishments and his expensive possessions, and realizes with crystalline, terrible clarity that he is standing at ground zero of his own destruction. The bomb has detonated, and he never even heard the timer counting down. Victoria Thornhill's office in Philadelphia holds none of the gilded excess of her Westport life. The space is ruthlessly functional whiteboards covering 2 walls with equations and logistics flowcharts, server racks humming quietly in the corner, 6 monitors displaying real-time data streams from ports and distribution hubs across the eastern seaboard. The company name on the frosted glass door, Apex Systems, means nothing to most people. To the 24 employees working in the converted warehouse space below it, means the future of American logistics. To Victoria, it means freedom purchased with patience and planning. Harrison Blake sits across from her now, reviewing his tablet, with the satisfaction of a chess master watching an opponent realize they're in checkmate. The asset freeze executed perfectly. Joint accounts locked as of 800 hours. His ability to pledge shares for the Hong Kong transaction blocked by court order. High limit cards reduced to standard consumer limits through your authority as joint account holder. As of 8:15 this morning, Marcus Thornhill cannot complete any significant financial transaction without judicial approval. Victoria drinks her tea, the ritual grounding her in the present moment. The surge of victory she expected doesn't come. Instead, there's only calm certainty, the feeling of a machine operating exactly as designed. What about the penthouse? Harrison allows himself a thin smile. Ms. Pierce discovered this morning that her company-issued credit cards no longer function. The Tribeca lease was terminated at 7:30 by the building owner, who retained my firm last week to review their commercial agreements. Turns out the morals clause in the lease was violated when tenant used the premises for purposes inconsistent with building standards. Security escorted her out at 8:20. She's currently at a midtown hotel attempting to charge the room to cards that are already maxed out. She served her purpose. Victoria's voice carries no malice, just statement of fact. Natalie Pierce was a tool, nothing more complicated than a wrench or a lever useful for a specific application and then set aside. Harrison leans back, studying Victoria with open curiosity. 9 months. You executed this in 9 months from conception to completion. When did you know? What was the moment it stopped being endurance and became war? Victoria looks past him to the harbor beyond the windows, gray water stretching toward the Atlantic. It wasn't the affairs. That reality had settled into the foundation of their marriage years ago, just another structural compromise she made to maintain stability. Marcus needed to feel powerful, needed young women to reflect back an image of himself that had stopped being true. She could live with that. She had lived with that. The moment came 9 months ago at Christmas dinner. Their son Ethan had come home from his nonprofit work in Philadelphia, 26 years old, and trying to build something meaningful instead of just managing inherited wealth. Ethan needed $50,000, not for luxury or indulgence, but to make payroll for his small team to keep their logistics platform for food banks running while they pursued grant funding. He asked his father in front of the whole family, asked politely, professionally, laid out the business case with spreadsheets and impact projections. Marcus listened with that particular smile he wore when preparing to demonstrate his superiority, the expression of a man about to deliver a lesson. Then Marcus laughed. Not a chuckle of regret or gentle refusal, but actual laughter, loud and performative, designed to wound. He called Ethan a sentimental fool, playing at charity, wasting his MIT education on poverty tourism while real men built real empires. The words flayed their son in front of Victoria's sister Ethan's girlfriend, the household staff, stripped away dignity and hope with surgical cruelty. Victoria watched Ethan's face crumble, saw the exact moment the light died in his eyes, and suddenly she wasn't looking at her husband anymore. She was looking at a blight, a consuming force that built nothing except monuments to his own ego, that measured worth only in dollars and domination, that destroyed everything he touched and called it success. That night she opened a new laptop purchased with cash, created accounts Marcus would never see. Re-enrolled in the computer science master's program she abandoned 25 years ago to marry him, not because she needed the degree for credibility, but because she needed to remember who she was before she became Mrs. Marcus Thornhill, before she let herself be reduced to decoration and silence. She hadn't been idle during those 25 years of garden parties and charity galas. She had been learning the logistics industry from the inside, understanding its mechanics and weaknesses, building relationships with the engineers and operations managers Marcus never bothered to know. And she had been remembering the predictive routing algorithm she wrote fresh out of her undergraduate engineering program, the system that became the foundation of Thornhill Global's competitive advantage. Marcus had taken her work, filed the patent under his name alone, built his empire on her intellectual property, while she smiled at dinner parties and pretended the theft hadn't happened. She was young then, stupid enough to believe love meant partnership, that marriage was supposed to be collaboration between equals rather than absorption of one person by another. Apex Systems Incorporated 7 months ago. The patent for her new AI logistics platform was secured 5 months ago, a system that doesn't just optimize routes but predicts disruptions and adapts in real time, making traditional hub-and-spoke models look like cargo ships trying to compete with overnight delivery drones. Beta testing with 2 Fortune 500 clients ran for 8 weeks, proving the technology worked better than anything else available. Official contracts were signed 2 weeks ago, major corporations ready to abandon Thornhill Global the moment they had legal justification. "He didn't just cheat on me, Harrison." Victoria's voice is quiet but carries an edge that could cut bone. "He bored me. He disappointed me. He looked at our brilliant son and saw failure because Ethan wanted to help people instead of exploit them. Marcus thought I was furniture, an elegant fixture he could ignore until he needed me to perform for his associates. He forgot that even furniture can be moved, repurposed, put to better use." She had known about Natalie Pierce from the beginning, had in fact orchestrated the relationship with subtle precision, made sure Natalie's marketing proposals reached Marcus's desk with Victoria's quiet endorsement, ensured the younger woman received a gala invitation despite lacking the seniority to warrant one. Victoria needed a final public justification, needed the morals clause in Marcus's CEO contract triggered, needed photographic evidence so clear and damning that no amount of legal maneuvering could make it disappear. Natalie thought she was seducing a king to steal his crown. She never realized the old queen was using her as a pawn to expose the king's vulnerabilities, that every file she copied from Thornhill Global's servers was being monitored and cataloged by Harrison's team, building a case for corporate espionage that could be deployed if needed, but was ultimately unnecessary. Natalie was bait and distraction, nothing more. Harrison pulls up a new screen. The Wall Street Journal piece is scheduled to publish at 10:15, time to hit when market panic peaks. It details Apex's technology, includes quotes from your two major clients announcing they're terminating Thornhill global contracts and signing with you instead. Stock is already down 8% pre-market on divorce news. When the Hong Kong collapse becomes public and the article drops, we're looking at 30 to 35% total decline over 2 trading days. Victoria nods once. They'll want to negotiate with me. Offer a settlement to go away quietly. Let Marcus maintain control and save face. And when they make that offer, I'm going to tell them I don't want their money. I want the company. Marcus Thornhill spends 48 hours in a cage of his own construction surrounded by luxury that has become meaningless wealth that no longer functions, power that evaporated the moment Victoria signed her name to legal documents he never imagined she was capable of producing. He finally reaches a third-tier attorney from his firm, a nervous young associate named Peterson, who clearly drew the short straw when senior partners decided who had to take Marcus's call. Mr. Thornhill. I can't provide legal counsel. Mr. Kent has been retained by the Thornhill Global Board to advise them regarding the Morals Clause situation. The conflict of interest prevents me from representing you against the company. Marcus's voice is raw from shouting into empty rooms. Then unfreeze the goddamn accounts. Get a different judge to review the restraining order. Do something. Peterson's voice drops to barely above a whisper. Sir, the judge who signed the temporary restraining order is Judge Rebecca Morrison. She's assigned to family court in Fairfield County District. She's going to handle the dissolution case. So, what does that matter? Sir, your PAC ran attack ads against her last year during her retention election. The spots called her soft on crime and accused her of judicial activism. They were quite harsh. She's aware of who funded them. The cold sweat that breaks out across Marcus's shoulders has nothing to do with the temperature. He remembers approving those ads, signing off on the media buy without reading the content, trusting his political consultants to do what was necessary to elect judges who understood business interests. Judge Morrison isn't going to be sympathetic. Judge Morrison is going to use every tool at her disposal to make his life difficult, and Victoria knew this when she filed in Fairfield County instead of choosing a different jurisdiction. His phone rings, the sound sharp and intrusive in the hollow house. Unknown number. Marcus answers anyway, desperate for any contact with the world outside his isolation. The voice that assaults his ear is Natalie's, but stripped of all seduction and calculation, raw with hysteria. Marcus, they kicked me out. They took everything. My cards don't work. The building threw me out of the apartment. They said I'm fired. You have to fix this right now. Marcus's rage finds a target. This is your fault. That red dress showing up at the gala, making yourself so visible. You were supposed to be discreet. My fault? Natalie's voice climbs toward a shriek. I'm homeless. You said you were leaving her. You said we were building something together. You promised me a partnership. Get in line. Marcus ends the call, feels a vicious flash of satisfaction that someone else is suffering more than him, that he's not the only one whose life is imploding. He doesn't know that Natalie Pierce isn't actually suffering, that her tears are performative panic designed to make him feel powerful one last time. Her first call this morning wasn't to Marcus. It was to Harrison Blake, offering to provide testimony about Marcus's use of company resources for personal affairs in exchange for immunity from the corporate espionage charges Harrison has been quietly building. Her second call was to a reporter at the Wall Street Journal who paid $50,000 for an interview and access to her carefully curated selection of copied files. Natalie Pierce isn't losing. She's cashing out. The Journal article breaks at 10:17, 3 minutes late, but timed perfectly to maximize destruction. The headline is brutal and precise. Thornhill Global's fatal flaw, Apex AI, promises 40% cost reduction in logistics sector. The piece is a masterclass in corporate assassination, laying out every weakness in Marcus's business model with clinical precision. Outdated hub-and-spoke infrastructure built for an era before real-time tracking. Bloated executive compensation packages that drain capital better spent on technology investment. Refusal to innovate despite clear market signals that the industry was evolving beyond traditional models. Then the article introduces the solution. Apex Systems, a Philadelphia-based startup founded by Victoria Ashford Thornhill, leverages advanced artificial intelligence to predict and prevent supply chain disruptions before they occur. The technology represents a fundamental leap beyond current logistics optimization systems. Two major clients are quoted. Companies Marcus personally courted and closed contracts he celebrated as victories. Both announced they are terminating their Thornhill global agreements and signing with Apex Systems, effective in 60 days pending transition planning. The stock, already bleeding from divorce news and whispers of the Hong Kong deal, collapse hemorrhages. Marcus watches on his laptop as the numbers turn red, dropping 8% in pre-market trading, then 12% when the market opens at 9:30. At 10:25 minutes after the journal article posts panic selling, drives the price down 18%. At 10:23, the New York Stock Exchange triggers a circuit breaker, halting trading in Thornhill Global stock for 15 minutes to prevent total freefall. When trading resumes at 10:38, the sell-off continues, though slightly moderated. By noon, when Hong Kong partners issue a terse statement that the acquisition deal is under review pending resolution of regulatory concerns, the stock closes down 25% from yesterday's open. $2 billion in market capitalization evaporated in a single morning. Marcus's personal net worth calculated on his shareholdings has dropped by $700 million, while he sat paralyzed in his study, unable to execute a single transaction. The board conference call happens at 2 in the afternoon. Marcus dials in from his desk, surrounded by empty decanters and crumpled legal documents, facing a screen filled with angry, terrified faces. Harrison's voice comes through. First, the board member Natalie had wanted replaced, now leading the charge. "Marcus, what is this? Who is this woman? This Apex Systems?" Marcus's voice sounds like gravel, abraded by hours of shouting and drinking. "It's my wife. It's Victoria. It's nothing, just a vanity project she started. A hobby. A hobby." Another board member's face fills the screen, red and furious. "Her hobby just cost us $4 billion in market cap. The Hong Kong deal is dead. Our lenders are calling in credit lines. We're facing a liquidity crisis. I'll fix it." Marcus hears the desperation in his own voice, hates it. "I'll file a countersuit. I'll negotiate with the Hong Kong partners. I'll stabilize the stock. You'll do nothing." The new voice cuts through the chaos, calm and measured and absolutely authoritative. The board members' faces register shock, then confusion as Harrison Blake's image appears in a new window on the shared screen. "Who the hell is this?" Harrison demands. "This is a closed board session. My name is Harrison Blake. I represent the majority interest in this matter. Gentlemen, I apologize for the intrusion, but I felt it important to clarify the situation before you make decisions based on incomplete information." Marcus feels ice crystallizing in his chest. "You represent Victoria?" Harrison's thin smile is visible even through the video compression. "No, Marcus. I represent Apex Systems. As of 900 hours this morning, my client has acquired significant equity positions in Thornhill Global Logistics from institutional investors who chose to exit their positions during this morning's market disruption. When your Hong Kong deal collapsed and the stock crashed, several major shareholders decided to cut their losses. Apex Systems offered superior pricing for those distressed assets. Combined with certain previously undisclosed holdings, Apex is now the single largest shareholder in your company. The silence on the call is absolute. Marcus can hear his own heartbeat, feel the walls of his study closing in. "You can't." His voice is barely a whisper. "That's not possible." "It's not only possible, Marcus. It's complete." Harrison's voice carries the satisfaction of a surgeon explaining a successful procedure. "Additionally, my firm has acquired the debt position from your Hong Kong partners, who were understandably eager to liquidate their exposure to this situation. That debt gives us considerable leverage in any restructuring discussions. This isn't a divorce." Harrison pauses, lets the words settle. "This is a hostile takeover, and you, I'm afraid, are the only liability left to mitigate." Another board member finds his voice. "What are you proposing?" "I'm not proposing anything. I'm informing you that the board has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of shareholders. The current CEO has violated the morals clause in his employment contract through documented adultery and misappropriation of corporate resources. The Tribeca penthouse lease was funded through a company subsidiary. Ms. Pierce was issued a corporate credit card despite not being an employee. These actions expose the company to shareholder lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny. Harrison continues methodical and inexorable. The board has the authority and the obligation to terminate Mr. Thornhill for cause and install leadership that can restore shareholder confidence. I have been authorized to inform you that Victoria Thornhill, founder and CEO of Apex Systems, is prepared to assume operational control of the merged entity pending shareholder approval of the acquisition. The vote happens in real time while Marcus watches powerless to stop it. 8 board members vote to terminate Marcus Thornhill as CEO and chairman of Thornhill Global Logistics effective immediately for cause. 2 abstain, 0 vote against. Security is being dispatched to your residence to collect company property. Harrison's voice is professional, almost gentle. Don't worry, Marcus. Victoria has ensured you won't be left destitute. You'll retain the Westport estate and your foundation commitments. Everything else transfers to the new organizational structure. The call ends. Marcus is left staring at his reflection in the black screen, seeing a stranger. A man who was a king this time yesterday, who commanded billions and bent markets to his will, now sitting alone in a cold house with empty rooms and frozen accounts, every pillar of his identity demolished in less than 24 hours. 6 months pass in a blur of legal proceedings and desperate maneuvering that accomplish nothing except draining Marcus's remaining liquidity. His days blur into sameness, waking in rooms that feel like museums of his failure, eating meals he prepares himself with hands that shake, watching from the margins as Victoria transforms Thornhill Global into something he no longer recognizes. The press is savage. Natalie's interview paints him as a manipulative predator, her careful editing making her look like a victim instead of an opportunist. Former friends vanish, their assistants suddenly expert at screening calls. The social invitations stop. The deference he took for granted evaporates overnight. Today is the final signing, the legal ceremony that will formalize the merger of Apex Systems and Thornhill Global under Victoria's control, that will sever his last connection to the company bearing his family name. Security escorts him into the Thornhill Tower boardroom, a space he hasn't entered in months. The room is full. The board members he used to command look sheepish and relieved survivors of a shipwreck, grateful to reach shore. At the head of the table, in the leather chair he personally commissioned 10 years ago, sits Victoria. She's transformed. Not the woman from the museum gala, not the quiet wife from the Westport mansion. She's radiant in a tailored sapphire suit that speaks of authority and competence, her hair cut in a short modern style that frames her face. She's laughing at something Harrison Blake said, the sound bright and genuine, the laugh of someone who loves her work and the people around her. When she notices Marcus entering, the laughter doesn't die. Her smile doesn't falter. She simply nods a polite acknowledgement of his presence, the way she might greet a junior associate delivering coffee. "Marcus, thank you for coming. Please sit." She gestures to a chair at the far end of the table, the seat usually reserved for outside counsel or observers. Harrison slides papers across the polished surface. "This is the final transfer of authority. You'll be resigning your last remaining board seat, ceding all voting rights, and signing a comprehensive 5-year non-compete and non-disclosure agreement." Marcus's voice is a rusty croak, his throat tight. "A non-compete. What am I going to compete with? I have nothing left." Victoria's voice is smooth, professional, the tone of a CEO addressing a minor administrative matter. "It's a formality, Marcus. We're protecting the brand, my brand now." Marcus looks at her, really sees her for perhaps the first time in a decade. The quiet, graceful woman he married has disappeared completely. In her place sits an empress, an architect, a force that built an empire while he thought she was arranging flowers. Why? The question escapes him, raw and broken. Why all of this? Why not just take half and go? Why destroy everything? Victoria leans forward. The entire room holds its breath. everyone straining to hear. Because, Marcus, you never understood. It was never about the money. I had money. My family had money long before you built your little logistics company. Her voice is calm, relentless. It was about the waste. You wasted everything you touched. You wasted your talent on ego instead of innovation. You wasted your potential on affairs and power games. You wasted our son's trust and love. You wasted my time. She pushes the papers toward him. You built an empire on a foundation of stolen work and hollow ambition. You didn't build me, Marcus. You just borrowed my blueprints and pretended they were yours. Now I'm taking them back and I'm building something that actually matters. Victoria's smile is small, pitying. And the first step in any proper renovation is removing the debris. Time to take out the trash. Marcus's hand shakes as he picks up the pen. He thinks about fighting, about refusing, about making one last stand. But he's so tired. Tired of being defeated. Tired of watching everything crumble. Tired of being the villain in a story he thought he was writing. He signs his name. The last time Marcus Thornhill will mean anything in this room reduced to a scrawl of ink on a contract that erases him. He stands a ghost haunting his own life and walks toward the elevator. No one says goodbye. No one acknowledges his departure. He's already forgotten, already irrelevant. As he waits for the elevator, the sound reaches him. Bright, genuine laughter spilling from the boardroom. Victoria's voice full of life and joy and triumph. The sound of someone who won completely, who rebuilt herself from silence into power. The elevator doors open. Marcus Thornhill steps inside, presses the button for the lobby. The doors close on the laughter, on the light, on everything he used to be. Winter arrives in Westport like a personal vendetta, ice and wind finding every crack in the mansion's century-old bones. Marcus Thornhill, now 60 years old, and feeling every day of it, feels the cold in ways he never did when the house was properly maintained. The heating bill for 20,000 square feet of Georgian architecture arrived last week, a number so astronomical it made him laugh, a bitter sound in the empty rooms. Victoria's attorneys were comically literal when they wrote the settlement. He kept the house. They never specified he could afford to live in it. He exists now in 2 rooms. The professional-grade kitchen where he has learned through humiliating trial and error to make instant coffee and overcook frozen meals, and his study where a military surplus cot occupies the space once reserved for a leather reading chair. The master bedroom upstairs might as well be on another planet, a memorial to a life that belongs to someone else, a man who died a year ago and left Marcus behind to haunt his corpse. His days have no shape, no structure beyond the biological necessities that keep him technically alive. Wake sometime after dawn, make coffee that tastes like ashes, sit at the desk that once commanded an empire and now supports a consumer-grade laptop running slow enough to make him want to throw it through the window. The desk itself mocks him, massive mahogany from an era when the Thornhill name meant something, when his grandfather built freight routes across New England and his father expanded into the Midwest. All that history, all that accumulated legacy, reduced to a prop in the museum of Marcus's failure. The money situation is both better and worse than total poverty. He's still wealthy by any normal American standard, still technically a multimillionaire based on the shares Victoria allowed him to keep in the settlement. But those shares are in Apex Thornhill, the merged entity Victoria created from the ashes of his company. The stock price has tripled since the merger completed 9 months ago. Victoria's leadership and technological innovation transforming a struggling logistics firm into a darling of Wall Street analysts and venture capital newsletters. This is Victoria's final masterpiece of revenge, the cruelty so perfect it approaches art. Marcus's continued existence is funded by her success. Every grocery purchase, every utility bill, every tank of gas for the modest American sedan he bought after selling his collection of luxury vehicles, all of it comes from dividends on shares in a company where his ex-wife is CEO, where his name has been systematically erased from every wall and document and press release. To survive, he must watch her thrive. To eat, he must accept scraps from the table she built on his ruins. The black American Express card he carried for 20 years, the one with no preset spending limit that opened doors and bought deference, sits in a drawer upstairs with his cufflinks and the Patek Philippe watch he can no longer afford to insure.